And so if you want to survive, people that are listening, you have got to be as weird as you possibly can, because otherwise you're going to be swallowed up by the sameness. And so what I learned at San Francisco State that was useful to me was to be passionately engaged in something that I cared about and wanted to know more about.
Can you introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is David Gill. I taught writing and literature at San Francisco State here for 17 years.
Perfect. And then can you tell me a little bit about how you got connected with SFSU?
I transferred here as an undergrad student in, are you ready for this? 1999. In the journalism department, as a matter of fact. And at the time, I was writing for a music news website, and I'd taken a few journalism classes at University of Hawaii. And when I transferred here, they wanted me to take a test, like write a story from some facts to show that I was at a certain level that I could, uh, I didn't have to, be remedial. And they gave me that test, and they said I didn't do well enough. And so I was looking at taking more journalism classes again. And so I transferred to creative writing, and I got a creative writing degree, which is frankly a whole lot easier and comes on the same piece of paper. And then I got a master's degree in literature and a certificate to teach composition. And I finished that in 2005. And I was teaching here from 2006 until fall of last year. It's my last semester.
And what are you doing now with your time?
I'm a reality investigator.
And can you tell us a little more about
That's not self-explanatory. Well, it's a long, complicated story, but essentially the I work for a tech bro who has some eccentric views, and I work for something. I'm the head of something called the Point Reyes Reality Investigation Center, which is a independent nonprofit dedicated to studying the elusive nature of consciousness, and also in preserving some of the weirdness of West Marin County.
Nice.
It's a pretty plum gig. My my interest as both a scholar and a fan was in a science fiction writer named Philip K. Dick. He lived in the Bay Area, and I've spent the last 20 years studying his life and work, interviewing people that knew him and his wives. And I have a blog called The Total Dickhead. And he lived in Point Reyes for a while, and I was writing about his life there and trying to find this building where he wrote. And my boss, who happens to live in Point Reyes, was all interested in Philip K. Dick's life there, and I think he's probably just Googled that. Somehow found my blog, began commenting on it, and about a year and a half later, here we are, creating some pretty interesting a job for myself. I don't know what else to say. It's everybody I explain it to, they ask me to explain it again usually,
Yeah.
and the second time doesn't help.
Yeah. Did you grow up in Point Reyes or what's your
No, I've been traveling up there since 2007. Philip K. Dick's wife, third wife, was named Anne. She lived up there. I wrote the introduction to her memoir, and I was pretty good friends with her, and I got introduced to the community at that point. And so ever since, I've been going up sporadically. And in the last year, I've got an office now above the Western Saloon, which is a 100-year-old saloon in the main strip of town. And I go up there about 2 or 3 times a week, and I'm just meeting all these wacky community people, and it's fascinating and amazing.
Yeah, that sounds like a really interesting job, like you're always
Yeah.
pretty busy.
Well, I
But in
took
the
my son to my job, and at the end of about the 4 hours that he was there, he goes, "Is this all you do?" Was essentially like standing around and talking to people. I said, "No, there's a little bit more, but that's basically it."
that's nice.
Yeah, and I'm here with a message, and my message is, um, that only the freaks are gonna survive. I was thinking about this on my drive over. I live in Oakland, and so for 17 years, I've made this commute to come and teach, and every morning I would always be lost in thought, thinking of, because anything that I found interesting on that morning drive, I could usually then bring in front of a classroom, whether it was timely or philosophical or whatever. So it's just a kind of a habit to be thinking in that space. And it just, even though I haven't done this commute in a year, the minute I was back on it, I was thinking again. And what I thought and what I wanted to say here is that only the freaks will survive, because just look around us. Everything is getting more and more standardized. Everything, right? I mean, just think about the red plastic cup. right? And the way in which that now is like a cup for so many people, whereas like throughout human history, cups bore this incredible variety, and almost everyone bore the handiwork that made it and the artistry that was involved in it. And what you get now are these homogenizing products, and they're coming in a tidal wave. Right? And what they're coming to do is they're coming to make you a cog, a standard thing, because it's much more efficient to deal with you as a client or a customer if you are just a single square rather than an individual person that has unique needs. So we're being smashed into this sameness. And now you're adding into that AI, which is basically based on standardizing thought, on like creating the lowest common denominator of thought. And so if you want to survive, people that are listening, you have got to be as weird as you possibly can, because otherwise you're going to be swallowed up by the sameness. And so what I learned at San Francisco State, that what's useful to me was to be passionately engaged in something that I cared about and wanted to know more about. And that led me to a job ultimately that is paying me much more now than I made as a teacher here. So and I didn't see that in a lot of students. I saw students here coming in essence to become part of the machine, to make themselves a square so they fit into a box. And I'm here to tell you that will not work in the future. The only thing that will work is to be as different as you possibly can be. Sorry, rant over. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking again about your time at SF State, you were known for a lot of things. You were really well liked by students.
Yes.
You were known for blasting "God Save the Queens" by the Sex Pistol for your
Mm.
classes.
No, no, that was just as a
Oh,
protest at the
just
very end of my tenure to try to get people to pay attention to the incredible cuts that were being made at the same time that the administration was being treated like royalty and being paid salaries that are ungodly, unconscionable, and disgusting.
absolutely, yeah. What kind of made you more appealing? Like, why were students so drawn to
Oh,
you?
this is
Do you
really
think? And
well, because I'm a great guy. Honestly, because I was being real with them. I still think of myself as a student here. Because I was such a crucial I mean, I can remember walking these halls as an undergrad that felt like they didn't know anything. I'm a high school dropout. Everybody was always telling me I wasn't working up to my full potential, and this is the place where I learned to at least work to some modicum of my potential. And, so I saw that in students. I saw that, like, a lot of them didn't feel at home. They didn't feel comfortable here. They were intimidated, and so my job as an English teacher was to make them not intimidated. Not intimidated by me, and then by proxy, not intimidated by the English language. Which is very scary, especially if it's not your native tongue, but the fact that you can use it for yourself, that you can use it to do what you want it to do, you can make it your own. You don't have to be the standardized thing where everybody's writing the same. That, I think, appealed to people. I'm funny. I have a good sense of humor, and that goes a long way.
so more on your activism, kind of going back to that. You were also the creator of the posters that were in protest of the budget cuts, with the missing persons lecturer posters and the Lynn Mahoney salary posters. So are you still engaged at all in any type of activism for like teachers, or has it
Eh.
picked up that torch for you?
Oh God. I'm cringing in agony because the answer to that is no. I'm not involved. I closed this door behind me. Um, San Francisco State basically broke my heart, you know? I mean, I gave my everything to teaching here. It became my identity, and after 17 years, they didn't even care. Like, they just wanted to get rid of me. They just wanted me out of the picture, and, I that hurts too bad, and, unfortunately, like, this university can suck it. It's basically my attitude. I'm sorry to the students who are listening. All I can tell you is go to a community college for your first 2 years, and don't come here until you can find a major that you can make into doing something that you love that not everybody else wants to do. And then it's a good investment. And otherwise, don't set foot on the campus. And don't let them convince you otherwise, because that's the other thing that really drove me crazy was that they were pushing people to come here at the very same time that they were treating them so poorly, to change the admission rate from 65% to 95% to bring in more students because of the declining enrollment without supporting those students, to put these new students who just a few months before weren't deemed adequately prepared, to put them in debt for an education that a few months ago we would have agreed they weren't ready for, that's unethical. That's stupid, short-sighted, and apathetic, and ultimately blind to the plight of the students who are here. So, having said that, I don't have time to come back and help people when the relationship is that thoroughly debased. And I hope I'm following it in the sense that I get the emails. It's not going well.
Yeah.
And, I came here, what the first thing I saw when I came on campus day was the huge new buildings down at the corner where the new freshman dorm stuff is. And I know, the plight of Mary Hall and that we needed those buildings and it doesn't impact the way that teachers get paid. It comes from separate money. But man, talk about a stab in the heart. Like, what are you building that for? And on the only answer I can come up with is they're building it so that they have a place where they can make everybody the same.
As the university, kind of going back to what you're saying, you're still receiving kind of emails, like, are you receiving emails from the CFA or
Yeah.
so as you kind of continue to see more downsizing and cuts and, they proposed an increase in labor load recently, that the CFA is fighting, what advice would you give to lecturers or faculty that might be facing a similar position you're in?
Look for another job. But that's semi-serious. If you intend to stay here, I don't know how you make this administration understand that they can't cut their way to success. I mean, it's so obvious though. There you have declining enrollment at the same time San Jose State has a burgeoning enrollment. The reputation of this school is garbage, just among the people who are coming here, and the fact that they know that teachers have been cut, that programs have been cut, that there aren't any offering any dance classes. That makes people not wanna come here. And so this idea that somehow they can cut their way to prosperity is gonna end in a disaster, as far as I can tell. And so if you can figure out some way to bypass that, if we can figure out some way to turn this stupid enterprise of it's not a stupid enterprise, this enterprise of enlightening young people and giving them the tools to make a quality life for themselves, we have to restructure the basic way that this works. And so if you're still involved, I would encourage you to be thinking about how we shift the paradigm completely. And I just want to say one other thing, 10, maybe 15 years ago, we put in place English 104 and 105. And those were, we couldn't call them remedial classes. And they're really not. They're a stretch course where 114 is offered over 2 semesters to students who aren't prepared. I saw the labor that went into creating those classes. It took the head of the English department every bit of political capital she had to make it happen. And within the span of half a semester, they decimated it. They tore apart all those cohorts and they nixed it. And when we were facing cuts earlier, while 104 and 105 were still in functioning, we asked this head of the English department as these cuts were happening. We said, "What do we do?" And she said very earnestly, "We fight it within the system. You stay within the system and you fight it." And what I've learned is that was wrong advice. That based on what happened to that English 104, 105 department, that class, you cannot stay in the system and fight it. You just get rolled over. So we have to figure out how to step outside the system to fight it and to make people see that it needs to fundamentally change.
I'd say those are pretty much all the questions I had. I guess my last one would be, what specific things, I know you're talking about your drive over and how you would think about things and how this was really, something you felt really passionate about, you dedicated a large portion of your life to. What would you say you miss most about SFC?
That's easy, the students. The people, right? I mean, the students put us in this set of roles, the people, the young people, and to see people at the widening of the eyes at, that life is a lot bigger. There's nothing more wonderful than seeing some queer kid from Barstow, right, who's had to live their whole life hiding who they are, walk through the hallways of San Francisco State and feel welcome enough to have this blooming and become who they really are. And those are the most beautiful flowers, right? And so that being part of being a witness to that transformation was the most meaningful thing in my life. And what I do now is kind of a pale imitation of that, but it pays better. And they frankly treat me a little better. I hope, right? We're only 1 year in.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think those are all the questions I had for you.
Fantastic work.
All right. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.